There's a word, volunteerism, that has gotten kind of some negative connotations for some very uh, non-ethically conducted programs. And there are concepts such as poverty tourism or white man savior complex or various conditions and behaviors that have cast a negative light for people who have tried to do things without thinking about how you can do them responsibly. If the community hasn't chosen the project, hasn't chosen how we're going to do it, if we're not hiring local foremen that are from the community, then we're replacing somebody's paid job. So for us, if we're not starting with the community first so that it's their project, they own it, they're leading it, then that project will have much less value.
Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor podcast. Devon Taylor, Devon Taylor. Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Devon Taylor podcast, where we have guests from all around the world tell their unique and powerful stories to not only allow their voice to be heard, but for you to leave feeling inspired. Today, I sit down with the founder and executive director of Globe Aware, a nonprofit that's been redefining what it means to serve communities around the world for over 2 decades. From Peru to Thailand to Ghana, our next guest has spent 25 years crafting short-term volunteer programs that do more than check a box. They build bridges. Her approach focuses on letting local communities take the lead while volunteers learn, connect, and grow through shared purpose. So I'm happy to welcome to the show, Kimberly Haley-Coleman. Hello.
Devon, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get to know, how you started Global Aware and where that came about. It's, such an interesting story of volunteerism and, just, doing something that connects us. So I'd love to start there. Where did this idea come about? And what kind of inspired you to walk away from, I know you were in the corporate world first, so I'd love for you to speak on that as well.
Right. And it's funny. It, I would love to be able to tell you that I started with the specific goal in mind, and that's not what happened. It was actually happenstance. I was living and working a relatively traditional life that found myself, I would be in other countries for the corporate work I was doing. And then over the weekend, since I had already done a whole lot of traditional tourism in my prior years, I wanted to find other things to do with my time. I didn't have a really concrete sense, so service became one of the options, and I tried to find and locate, is it Habitat Humanity, Engineers Without Borders, what church is doing what. Anyway, and I could not find anyone at that time who was really willing and able to take on volunteers super short term because of the amount of time it takes to oversee and supervise someone in that respect. And so I started doing really small scale direct projects as a byproduct. If you see what I mean, I didn't even again have that clear of a goal. But once I started doing that, telling people what I was getting to do and finding that other people wanted to do it too and wanted to come back with me, then that's really where the genesis of it was, where I saw that, hey, this is really not just me that's getting so energized and inspired by getting to do these things, and that it does take special focus, time, and structure to make it work within a really short time frame. And so that's really how it came about.
And I'd love for you to, just for anyone that's listening now, that wants to know more about GlobalWare, what is GlobalWare exactly? I know I did a
Yeah.
little intro, but I'd love for you to explain it.
So we do, yes, thank you for that opportunity. So our real focus is short-term service experiences where we 26 programs around the world and try and make it easy. Someone goes to our website and they pick what date and country they want to go to. Press enter and pay. So people wonder, well, how do I do it? How do I apply? No. It's simpler than that. It's like signing up for summer camp, except easier. You're not a waiting list.
Yeah.
So we have, so all of these programs, they top out usually 10 to 12 people. And when people are registering, they're saying, "Hey, yes, I want to go to that Guatemala program where we're installing concrete floors in the homes of single moms." And they're designed so that our volunteers don't have to speak any language because our bilingual coordinators are there shepherding everyone through the process. We already have the foreman, the materials, the projects, the tools, everything available. We handle the accommodations, the food, the in-country transport. So it is an organized, very structured experience. Um, and so when somebody's signing up, they're really starting with where do I want to go and when do I have free time? So really 6 nights, 7 days. We very much try and work with whatever is a normal North American schedule. So, for example, if people want to go over 4th of July or Thanksgiving, we offer our programs throughout the year, but we try and make sure that we're helping allow busy working North Americans to be able to do this by making sure that they're planned at times when people are naturally likely to already have time off. And many employers actually pay contribution matching toward the fee to participate. Okay, I left this out that people are paying when they go to, participate in these programs, generally around $1,600. Does not include airfare. That's a for-profit, business that is separate. We can usually help people, after using your miles or whatever, give them tips on that piece. But aside from that, really everything else is, a part of the program. So it really comes down to what kind of project or experience or culture are you ready to connect to, assuming you're already connecting to, your local communities and giving back first and foremost to your neighbor and your home community. Yeah.
I love this because it gives us an opportunity because I find myself and I find a lot of people that I come into when it comes to volunteering, like, what do I do? Do I go to my local soup kitchen? Do I do this? Do I do this? But this gives us an opportunity to do it in another country or somewhere where they're not as established and really make a difference.
Yes.
But I want to know for you, like, why was that so important? Why that component?
Well, what really caught me on fire over this was, we are standing side by side with local communities. We are not heroes. We're not experts. We're slower at everything we do. So really it's this learning opportunity that's happening, this human connection that's happening. I'll give you an example, in Guatemala, where we're installing concrete floors in the homes of single moms. These are often 14, 15, 16-year-olds, girls who are living in a home made out of whatever found refuse they could find, no running water, no flushing toilets, no power. And when you're engaging in a project like this that is going to put a foundation and a garden and walls, in just a few days, and you can see what the real challenge is. Nobody's having to lecture to you. You're somehow getting this window into the gratitude we can all have for the running water. Because our volunteers, we are staying in accommodations that have running water, um, and power flushing toilets. And so that daily, confrontation with a different way of life in all of its aspects, even in the beautiful ways, and that most of these communities where we're working, they're getting to see their friends and their family many more hours a day than someone from North America might. So getting to see the real beauties and real challenges of a culture firsthand, and experiencing that human connected, the gratitude that the local communities show us for showing up and for paying for the materials and for being willing to stand by side, that, there's something magic that happens at that moment, and look it's being with the local communities and the kind of person, the fellow volunteers you're meeting that do this. You might imagine that it tends to self-select for some really wonderful, warm, generous, interesting people, and again, so these aren't things that we necessarily, thought about when we were starting. It was just something we recognized as we went along and said, "Oh my gosh, this is worth pursuing and continuing." The local communities want it, the volunteers want it. Even now, whether it's a school or a corporation or a church, it's a unusually great win-win-win, um, structure for
Yeah,
all involved.
that's beautiful. And I was reading your story, and there was one specific line that I loved. You said you were leaving Wall Street for jungle toilets, in your keynote. And that's quite a shift, obviously. But was there a defining moment that told you this was the right path?
So, I would say it was more a series of them. The Peace Corps, I really would have loved to have done. It's basically a 27-month commitment, and you've really got to find it's got to be at the right time in your life. Once you have a mortgage or a marriage or a child, that becomes a lot harder to make that logistically feasible. So I feel like I kind of missed that window and was finding myself in a typical traditional structure where I had the mortgage, I had the job, all of that. And so, when I started doing these on a one-off shorter self-created experiences, it was that coming back and being in the office in a corporate environment where I found that I was missing that connection, that it was so hard to replicate that in a regular office, competitive, dog eat dog kind of traditional world. And, seeing how much that experience does that so quickly and so naturally, getting outside of that regular workaday, headspace that allows you to tap into that deeper amount. So, it was actually a series of these events where I kept wanting to go back and continue to repeat it and repeat, "Why am I doing this? What is it about that experience that's, doing this to me?" And it was that connection, a series of experiences where I realized it is doing something for me in terms of feeling there's a meaning and a purpose to life, and that you can have impact, and that we are all real humans, that you do not have to be a rocket scientist or a surgeon to make a difference in someone's life. And yes, we can do all of this with our neighbors too, is the beauty of it. But somehow when you're in an environment that is so different from your own at home, it could touch you in a different way and open up your brain in a way that might not if you're trying to help somebody in an environment that looks the same every day.
Right. No, and if personally, I've only been to Mexico, and just seeing the vast difference in the way, like, I was on a beach, and I was a kid when this happened, and there was a little girl that came up to me, and she only spoke Spanish, but she was trying to sell something, and I just thought she was so beautiful. I was like, "Oh, she's such a cute little girl." My mom was like, "Oh yeah, but they're looking for money, and let's just give them money." And it was one of those realities where, like, I just, as a kid, watching a little kid going up to random strangers to try to make money was so different for me, and it started making me think differently. So I could see what you mean by just being in a completely different space, how that kind of opens your mind. But I can
And
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, no, go, please, yeah.
So we have all of our programs are very different. They're all over the place. But in Kenya, we're building wattle and daub style traditional homes. But there are all sorts of side projects you end up engaging in. We're playing soccer with the kids. We're listening to them sing. We have a bakery we've built there where we give half of the bread out to the local community and we sell the other half so that we're able to pay the living expenses. There's a lot of HIV affected people in the community, which is continuing to go up with USAID having stopped. So they're trying to find these sustainable ways of we're going to create something that isn't just giving out, whether it's money or candy or something, but something that is going to help the local community be more independent. So when we're in these situations, building a home and wattle and daub it's more like an adobe style home that you might see in Santa Fe, these really thick walls. And you're doing it alongside the family that's going to live there, right? So you see the difference you're making. The kinds of the metal roofs that we're putting in are something that are very difficult for the local community to afford on their own. And yet, in our free time and in the side, in between all of the work that we're doing, we are also doing cultural activities that a traditional tourist won't do. So, for example, in Kenya, where there's uh, a higher incidence connection to death than you would have here, there are funerals in your community couple times a week and the whole community comes. And it's not like our kind of funeral. People aren't wearing black and they're not sitting inside in a church. There are hundreds of people that will show up. There's music and drumming and singing, and everybody's brought food and they're speaking about it's this cultural event that, again, if you've just signed up to go on a safari, you're not going to see this and you're going to miss some of the beauty of this culture that would be hard to see. So while service is a huge piece for us, it's the byproduct of service that is hard to explain and where so much of the meaning comes from.
Yeah, being truly immersed in the community, that kind of brought tears to my eyes. Oh my gosh. And even that statistic.
Yeah. And it sounds tragic and sorrowful, and it is, and yet when you attend a Kenyan funeral, and anybody who's gone to one will know what I mean, it feels so different from what we think of, and it kind of challenges your expectations of what a default of a community event is or what a funeral is. And that's really something magical and worth experiencing that I hope everybody has, whether it's through GlobalWare or a church mission project or anything else. We all have nothing but to gain from seeing what each other's lives are like. Makes our own experience, our own lenses so much richer and more fulfilling.
Yeah, such a beautiful message. I kind of wanted to go back too, to something you were talking about. You said you guys don't, you're not working with not working with local communities, or you're emphasizing working with local communities, not for them.
That
Um,
is true.
and I wanted to know, like, how did you develop that philosophy, and why do you think that's so essential to real
So
change?
there are a few concepts here that are good to know that first of all, there's a word volunteerism that has gotten kind of some negative connotations for some very uh, non-ethically conducted programs, and there are concepts such as poverty tourism or white man savior complex or various conditions and behaviors that have cast a negative light for people who have tried to do things without thinking about how you can do them responsibly. And and so this is why for us it begins with the community. If the community hasn't chosen the project, hasn't chosen how we're going to do it, if we're not hiring local foremen that are from the community, then we're replacing somebody's paid job, which is not what we're trying to do. So for us, if we're not starting with the community first so that it's their project, they own it, they're leading it, then that project will have much less value. And so that's why we are working alongside the communities. We are not there as heroes and saviors. And because we're not experts, we are not expecting that our volunteers have mixed concrete previously or have any idea how to put in the frame of a house using the way. And again, we're not always doing houses. We assemble and distribute wheelchairs for landmine victims in Cambodia. They're all they're all designed. Hey, come with no skills, come without knowing how to speak the language. Don't worry. That's what we're here to do. Is you'll be learning from the locals how to do it, and that's the secret sauce. Making sure that we're listening to the local community first and foremost, and that our coordinators, our staff are from that community. We're not there to tell anybody what their challenges are.
Yeah, and that would kinda answer my next question because, I think that was what, I was gonna lean into was, a lot of people will go into, like you said, the white man savior, or, like, these communities may not even need this help, but you guys are actually partnering with these communities and connecting with them. How's that reception been? Obviously, after working with the communities and seeing some of these projects, be fulfilled, what has the response been like?
So when we started out, we were having to look really hard for communities that really wanted to work for us and that would also meet our criteria where we look for projects that are very safe. We're not high on ladders or operating heavy equipment and machinery. We're not handling bodily fluids because we're not doctors. So we do have criteria that have to be met on our side. So there was a lot of work that went into that initially. Now communities will come to us and say, "Hey, can you send volunteers?" And for us, if that grassroots organization has already done a good job of organizing themselves, of identifying what is important to them and how they want to address it. That's what the way it looks now is we look for the local organizations that have already done that. And then we know that there's a much greater chance that this is going to work well and it's going to look good. So over time, this has evolved. It used to take a lot of looking through, and now so much of that comes to us. So we are able to start in a different place to see how can we go forward? Can we go forward? And not every group, every community is a good fit. There are a lot of needs in Darfur, Somalia, Afghanistan. So but we're not in those places. We have unskilled volunteers. We are not a paramilitary organization with helicopters and machine guns. So we have to operate in places that are safe and where we can offer high quality medical care if somebody trips and twists their ankle. So we've got a lot of factors it takes to find a location and a community that's gonna be a really good fit for us.
I didn't even consider that, the component of the safety part. That truly would definitely, cut off a lot of places, especially in the times that we're in now for you guys. But the fact that it's even being considered, I think, is just a powerful, loving statement that you guys are willing to make, on behalf of the world, really. But I wanted to go to something that you said. You said a week abroad can change the world. Can you share a moment where you've witnessed that transformation happen, both on the volunteer and the community side?
I have so many I it is really hard for me to pick, but I mean, I'll give you I was in the Philippines with a group, the Baws, and we were passing by a family that had, a baby. I don't remember the name of the blood disease. It was something that was likely fatal without care. And this was a family with no electricity, no running water. And they said, okay, tomorrow, can we all go together to the hospital? They ended up paying for all of this baby's care that somehow resolved the issue. And it was like $1,100. I mean, there's just one little baby, and it saved this baby's life. And that family getting to be there and see, and this wasn't even anything global work planned. This was an aside. This was not the core project. So these volunteers using their own eyes, a week prior didn't know they were going to save somebody's life. 2 days prior didn't know they were going to be in this position. When people are engaged in this kind of project, not only, yes, they've made a difference on the ground for whatever family is going to be the beneficiary of whatever project we've just done, but then those same people come home feeling empowered and connected to the world in a way they didn't just a week prior. So that now they're making this ongoing difference in their regular everyday lives that they weren't previously making. So the difference isn't just for the local community recipients, right? It's got this really big impact that continues to go and go because the volunteers themselves come back changed and come back thinking, okay, who do I elect that is now in line with my new view of the world? Who do I surround myself with? Who do I help in my own community? Which neighbors can I make an impact with? So that's why it's so transformational. Is it's not limited to the country where the original community project is done. What we see as a very standard uh, rhythm is that a volunteer will often be hesitant on the first, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm going to like the food. Am I going to be safe? Am I going to know what I'm doing? How am I going to get from point A to B? Of course, we take care of all that, but until you've experienced it, you don't know. You're scared. You're hesitant. You might go to Latin America, and then you're like, hey, this this was easy in terms of logistics and transformational. Next time I'll go a little bit further. And before you know it, they're continent hopping and going to a different place. We try and make this affordable. That said, if there's anything I could do to wave a magic wand, I would make it free and make airfare free so that just everybody could experience it.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I wanted to ask that was leading me to my next question, if you guys were gonna have repeat people come back, and have you seen, like, that transformation? So, obviously, that's beautiful. I think that's one of the magical parts about volunteering, is that it can truly open your eyes to what you can not only do, around the country, but or around the world, but around your neighborhood. And in your life. But what is a lesson that you didn't expect to learn through all the years of doing this?
Well, we've also stumbled and made mistakes, and I'll give you an example. We had a water filtration project in the Andes Mountain in Peru, San Pedro de Costa, probably the year 2008, where they had said they wanted better water filtration, and we helped them bring a water source. We dug a trench with pipes and pulled the water, and then we used Sawyer water filters on the end. And they're a really wonderful company, make really great water filters, but they don't work well at altitude. And we didn't know that until we tried it. And so, we've had experiences like that where we weren't expecting that there was going to be a lesson like that in there, and now we change our processes in terms of making sure before we do a project, we've tried to consider as many things as we possibly can. So, boy, we've had so many lessons we've learned. I tell you, we did not anticipate having to close down all of our programs because all of the borders would be closed for a year or two during 2020. And we have currency fluctuations all the time, political events and protests that can change the safety situation. We're having that happen in Tanzania right now. Fortunately, that's fairly rare, and we're able to usually see a ramp up to where we can um, postpone or cancel a program should that ever happen again. That's very rare. But we've had so many experiences like that we did not anticipate and see coming. And again, COVID being a big one that we might have all known that these things have happened. We had never anticipated the world kind of shutting down for that long. So, boy, we've had a lot of curveballs, and yet we've seen that it's amazing how you can we did a lot of virtual programming at that point, like learn how to make tortillas for my local women in Guatemala. And, you pay $35, and that was a way for us to continue contributing to the community and have these virtual forums. But, those weren't things we anticipated.
Yeah.
So, boy, we've had a lot of them. That's a good question.
Yeah, and it seems like you guys have been able to weather the storm. And I think
Yeah.
honestly it's really has a lot to do with your cause, your mission. Like I say all the time, when you're in your purpose, God helps find a way,
Boy,
so,
isn't that the truth?
like but being through all of that, how are you personally handling all of the emotional and cultural challenges that you're facing? Um,
So, uh, communities have so much wisdom. Uh, Cultures have so much wisdom. And for me personally, I feel like it's, I've had the great good fortune to amplify my joy by seeing, uh, getting exposed to so many lessons. You know, these are There's a any day of our lives is an opportunity for real, true, mutual respect and long-term impact. Going to a culture where they have different default belief systems is an opportunity to learn. And, I'll give you an example. And our structures try and tease this out in a way you might not experience. So if you go on our Costa Rica program, for example, one of the things the coordinator will point out is, hey, we don't have traditional street addresses here in Costa Rica. If you are shipping something to someone, it's going to be to Jose Rodriguez, 600 meters south of the White Church, half a kilometer as you're leaving Cartagena, to have this discussion. Well, but how can that work? It just doesn't seem like it would, but it does. It happens in Tokyo, Japan as well, where they don't have traditional street addresses. So this constant source of learning and questioning your own what you think is normal. That's been a source of real joy and learning for me that never seems to end because cultures like our own are constantly in a state of evolution and change. And every time you go back, you learn something new. We were very fortunate to work with Desmond Tutu before he died in South Africa in Cape Town, Isamazu Yetu, township there, where he was a huge presence along with Nelson. Mandela. And these townships, the political situation, there's always a changing group of factors and dynamics in any country, in any culture. So it's those people, touch points, and influences that make these learning points and these joy points kind of never ending for me.
Mm, yeah. I can only imagine. And just hearing your story and how proactive and positive you've been through it all. I feel anyone that's been able to be in contact with you, their lives are also being changed on such a dramatic level because I feel, you're doing this for all the right reasons. And I just love that in today's world, we're getting so many more opportunities like from your company to find ways to volunteer on such a bigger level, if that makes any sense. That'll not just impact, the people that we would be working with, but our lives. And it just seems like it's impacted your life in such a powerful way. So, um, yeah,
Yeah, joy and generosity aren't tied to only wealth. I do think there's a certain degree of if you can't feed your children, that's a rough starting point. But some of the happiest, most giving people I've ever met have some of the most humble living circumstances and very few material possessions, and they're not spending as much time on their phone, and they have waterfalls around them, and so on. So being able to have the privilege to connect to people in these different circumstances, it is a privilege. And it can be hard to remember these things when you're surrounded in a society like ours where that can be a presence at a dinner table as people looking at, screens.
yep. Screens are, woo, our new modern day killer. I feel like it's yeah. But I want to know, where do you see global volunteerism evolving over the next decade? I've had a few different guests on here that have spoken a little bit about different ways of volunteering, and I was just curious to hear what you think.
One of the Okay, so we've seen a couple big trends that we think may be continuing. One is, multi-generational travel where people are traveling often with, their grandparents, children, various age groups traveling together. And then another is the corporate influence in global volunteering that was not something that we started out seeing. And a lot of new programs where their corporate social responsibility arm, rather than saying, hey, we're all giving to this particular charitable cause or having this day of volunteering, are saying, hey, we want our employees to decide how they want to give back and where. And if they're willing to serve and give time to a particular cause, that many companies are giving volunteer paid days off. So they might get 10 days regular vacation plus 5 days of paid volunteer service time and do contribution matching. So I feel like in terms of growth, what we've been seeing are more and more companies willing to enable that so that their staff are choosing, hey, I want to choose this particular culture and this particular project and this particular way to give back. And we feel like we're seeing a lot of momentum there.
That's beautiful. That's a great way for people that want to volunteer or give back. That's easy, quick, awesome. Um, I kind of wanted to ask this. I have a few more questions before I let you go. This one, answer as much as you want, or get into it as much as you want to. But with so many social issues around the world, how are you guys deciding which projects to take, and which projects is it really affecting the most, if any, for you guys?
So we certainly are always hoping we can connect in with basic needs, food, shelter, health, education. And to the extent that a local organization has done a good job of identifying what is their specific highest priorities, and usually they're related to one of those issues. So we try and support the local initiatives and challenges that the locals, the local community has identified. Uh, and so In Guatemala, we're working with a women's cooperative, and they're really the ones choosing which of the local community members is currently most in need of help with a home. We're not deciding that, right? So, so when it comes to which projects, as long as they meet our criteria of, safe, genuinely meaningful to a needy community, we're not going to go put a jacuzzi in someone's home. We have had people ask for that. And that it's culturally interesting, not something that we're not going to have people just stuffing letters into envelopes. That's something you could do at home, So we have criteria that we're having to sort through. But aside from that, um, it isn't us choosing the projects. As long as they meet our base criteria and as long as the local community has organized themselves around the challenges they've identified, then it seems the projects will often come to the forefront, just having those two things collide to figure out um, where do they meet. And if they don't, then usually the community is not a good fit for us.
Okay. No, that makes sense. And then, just last question for anyone that's listening that wants to make a difference, but doesn't know where to start. What would be the first small step you would suggest to them to serve with a purpose?
Well, first of all, to get over that hesitation that because there's such a huge joy that comes with making an impact on someone's life, and whether it's a Peace Corps or your church or a local community center, Globeware, Habitat for Humanity, Engineers Without Borders, any of them. There's so many opportunities that if you can get over the fear and recognize that these organizations wouldn't exist if they were putting people in unsafe um, situations. So I feel like getting over that fear and hesitancy and just willing to go, hey, maybe I'm a adventurous enough person, open at this point in my life to get that kind of joy and to get past the fear, because I think that's one of the main things we see that will hold people back. I don't speak the language. I don't know how to hold a hammer. I can't do that now. There are lots of great opportunities to connect and make a difference. This is one of many. And so look past that fear.
That makes me curious. Did you ever hold any fear, and
Sure.
how did you get past that?
Oh, sure. Actually, the pandemic was probably our biggest fear point. Like, what's going to happen to our communities and all of our programs? I still have fear. In South Africa, I worried about the communities where a lot of them were reliant on USAID for HIV medication that have been impacted, and um, I still have fear around those things. What will happen? Um, but it also helps motivate us to stay connected to see what can we as private citizens do that will make a difference in people's lives. So, we could all just turn the other way and go, I just don't know what I'm going to do. How it's too big. I can't. But then when you see all the real difference you can make, that's really what keeps you motivated. Because I look, I'm as human as anyone else. I still have those fears. I still have those fears, and there are struggles every day, when you're going, "Okay, how do we get past this particular thing?" And it's focusing on the joy of the real difference that people are making, you know?
Mm. Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, Kimberly, so much for being here and just sharing your story and what you guys are doing at Globalware. For anyone that wants to, that's interested after hearing this conversation, if they want to follow you, what's your website? What's your links? We'll leave them in the show notes as well, but
Perfect.
I'm going to leave that now.
Thank you.
Yeah. What's the website people can go to? Sorry.
Sorry. Well, we have lots of ways that people can. I mean, we have if our phone number is 214-824-4562. But any place, any direction, anyone would look with Globe Aware, not global, but Globe Aware, whether it's our website, our podcast channel, our YouTube channel, our LinkedIn, our Instagram, our Facebook. We're really everywhere you would look. We have little video clips showing this is what it's like today. This is a podcast of an interview, somebody coming back or with our coordinator. any place anyone looks with Globe Aware, they will find information about us.
And we'll make sure to leave all of that in the show notes.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, once again, thank you, Kimberly, for being here. I really appreciate it. And we wish you the best on your mission and hope you can continue to impact the world like you guys have been. So,
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very, very much.
of course, until next time, guys, we'll see you guys. Bye.
Hey guys, it's Icarus here.
And Amelia.
And I'm here to tell you if you'd like to join our brand new adventure. Go to DevonTaylorAuthor.com to learn more.
And check out the cool items like the new bucket hat.
Yeah, and so much more. See you guys there.